flexible degree plan while engaging with the academic resources of Rice. Details at gls.rice.edu.
Couple of wrecks still in your way over on 10 westbound Antoine, also 290 headed in Muskie. They're blocking several lanes. Flood watch till tomorrow morning, 68 for the high. Tonight's low 55. Widespread showers from early this morning, going to go this afternoon into the evening. They're going to taper off tonight, and then it's going to be a nice weekend. Sunshine, highs in the 70s, lows in the 50s. We're at 66 right now here at the University of Houston. Streaming live online at houstonpublicmedia.org, on our app as well. News updated 24/7. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. Houston Matters starts right now with more weather information on the way. It's 9 o'clock.
More rains on the way and possibly some severe weather or street flooding. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, the very latest on our wet weather today from Space City Weather's Eric Berger.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, why the state seems to keep tapping Houston ISD leadership to run state takeovers of other districts, exploring biracial identity through art, and from sinking ground to seaweed on the rise to ChatGPT being instructed not to mention goblins, we contemplate intrigues in the news on the good, the bad, and the ugly. Plus, members of Trio Menil join us to preview their concert Sunday and perform live in studio. We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is weighing whether to pull U.S. troops out of Europe. He's vexed that European nations aren't sending their troops to join the U.S. in blockading the Strait of Hormuz in the war against Iran. This comes as the Iran war boosts energy prices in the U.S. For President Trump, the stakes in Iran are not just strategic, they're also political. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Trump insists the war is almost over.
The war is eating up a lot of the president's time, but the White House says Trump can walk and chew gum at the same time. A White House official not authorized to speak publicly tells NPR that while the U.S. military and the president's diplomatic team work toward a deal with Iran and resolving temporary disruptions in energy markets, the rest of the administration continues to focus on Trump's affordability agenda. Trump signed an executive order yesterday on retirement savings and has worked to lower prices on prescription drugs. But at the same time, gas prices hit a new high since the start of the war. And Americans say they're not seeing much relief. According to a new Reuters Ipsos poll, just 27% approve of how the president is handling the U.S. economy. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Stocks open higher this morning as gasoline prices continue to climb. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 300 points in early trading.
Gasoline prices have jumped by 33 cents a gallon in just the last week, including a 9-cent jump overnight. AAA says the average price of regular gas nationwide is now $4.39 a gallon. There's little relief in sight as the war with Iran that's rattling energy markets is now in its third month. Both Exxon and Chevron reported better than expected quarterly profits today. Apple also outpaced expectations, reporting profits of more than $29 billion in the first 3 months of the year. iPhone sales remain strong. Last week, Apple CEO Tim Cook announced plans to give up that title. John Turnus, who's overseen hardware for Apple, will take over. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The Defense Department says it has signed agreements with 7 big tech companies to use their artificial intelligence programs. The Pentagon says the work will be for lawful operational use. The one AI company that is not included in these agreements is Anthropic. That big tech company and the Defense Department are in court over a contract dispute. Anthropic's CEO said this year he would not let his company be used for autonomous weapons or for spying on Americans. The Pentagon says Anthropic cannot tell it what to do with these tools. President Trump ordered the federal government to stop using Anthropic products, and Anthropic sued the government. On Wall Street, the Dow's up 300 points. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Jarl and Pamela Moan. focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And the Public Welfare Foundation, committed to advancing transformative youth and criminal justice reforms.
Mike, from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. A flood watch is currently in effect throughout the Houston area. Jimmy Fowler is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. He says the main threat today is along and north of I-10.
We're going to see continued kind of widespread shower and thunderstorm activity through this evening into late tonight. Overall, we're looking at rainfall totals of around 2 to 4 inches of rain, with some isolated higher amounts of maybe 4 to 6 in some isolated spots.
Fowler did mention a slight threat of hail as well. He described the rain today as gradual, with some pockets of heavy rain periodically throughout the day. A Cy-Fair ISD staff member is facing felony charges for an alleged incident that led to a child's death. Multiple outlets report that this stems from an incident that happened over a week ago, which involved a child diagnosed with autism who is nonverbal. Court records say that Donald Perkins allegedly pushed the child from behind. Soon after the child began choking, Perkins attempted the Heimlich maneuver, what was unsuccessful, and the student died at the hospital. Houston's World Cup host committee is making its physical mark on our city today, beginning its work at NRG Stadium and East Downtown. Here's our Michael Atkinson.
There are two major spots where work is happening for the World Cup beginning Friday. In East Downtown, the Houston host committee is setting up for the month-long fan festival for patrons to watch each of the matches. And in NRG Stadium, which will be called Houston Stadium for the duration of the tournament, crews will begin the lengthy process of installing grass to play on. Here's John Coppins, the host committee's vice president of operations.
We know what we have to get done. We know every minute is of importance. Every hour we need to be making progress, and that mindset has been in place for some time now and won't change just because the calendar flips.
The name NRG Stadium has already been removed from the building after news that it will ultimately be called Reliance Stadium after the World Cup. FIFA will properly take control of the stadium on May 15th. I'm Michael Atkinson, News 88.7.
And I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, exploring biracial identity through a new art exhibit. This week's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and members of Trio Menil perform live in our studio. First, though, heavy rain fell overnight in northern portions of the Houston metro area. Some hail also fell in isolated spots. There's potential for more severe weather to form later today along the southern half of Greater Houston. Eric Berger is a meteorologist and editor of Space City Weather. He joins us now. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Craig. How are you?
I'm all right. And yourself?
Not too bad.
How much rain did we get overnight across the region?
Well, it depends a lot where you are. Areas southeast of Houston have received almost nothing. Areas northwest have gotten up to 2 to 3 inches of rain.
Space City Weather issued your Stage 1 flood alert for all of today. What does that mean exactly?
Essentially, that means that just people need to be aware of the potential for street flooding, sort of briefly backed up streets, and just kind of be weather aware. It's not something people need to be overly concerned about, with flooding. It's the potential for heavy rainfall.
What's the likely timing of additional storms today?
So we think it's going to come in waves. We saw really, as mentioned, northwest of Houston this morning around sunrise, prior to sunrise. I think probably we'll see potentially the heaviest rain in central and southeast Houston around this afternoon, early evening. So it could really impact the afternoon commute home. And then those waves will kind of dissipate later this evening, and certainly after midnight, things are going to really quiet down.
When you say waves, basically you're meaning, we'll see stormy weather, then maybe a little bit of a break, then some more, then a break, and so forth.
Yeah, we don't mean like storm surge or waves coming in from the Gulf. It's just sort of waves of bands of heavier rainfall pushing through. And we're a little bit concerned about some severe weather kind of along and south of Interstate 10 this afternoon. We think some of those storms, areas like Pearland, Clear Lake, potentially, we did have some, as you mentioned, isolated hail last night. We could see some more of that later today.
Which portions of Greater Houston are at greatest risk of seeing some street flooding today?
I think areas north of I-10 that have already picked up 2 to 3 inches. We could get another, 1 to 3 inches there, and that could potentially cause some problems this afternoon. But I'm happy to see that so far, we haven't really seen major impacts from the rainfall. And as we should see some breaks today, I'm hopeful that continues. Again, we'll have to watch and see what happens this afternoon and evening.
And what should we expect in terms of total rainfall by the end of tonight?
It's going to vary widely. I think most areas will pick up between 1 and 4 inches with some higher isolated totals. So, all in all, pretty good rains actually as we get toward the warmer months and are still dealing with some drought conditions.
After the rainy, stormy weather does leave us, what can we anticipate this weekend?
Oh my gosh, if you like spring, get outside this weekend because we're on the cusp of summer, but we're going to have one more glorious spring weekend with high temperatures in the 70s. Now, Saturday morning is going to be pretty breezy, but those winds should calm down. We're going to see lots of sunshine, low humidity both Saturday and Sunday. Very, very nice days.
Eric Berger is a meteorologist and the editor of Space City Weather. Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you.
TEA Commissioner Mike Morath this week tapped Houston ISD Chief of Schools Sandy Massey to serve as the new state-appointed superintendent of Beaumont ISD. She is the third Houston schools official named in recent weeks to help lead the state takeovers in other districts. Sneha Day covers education for the Texas Tribune and joins us now. Sneha, good morning.
Good morning.
First, this is being described as Beaumont ISD's second state takeover. What happened the first time, and why is the district back in this position?
Right. So the first time was over financial mismanagement, and that was from 2014 to 2020. But now we're back in this situation for academic underperformance, and that sort of follows a trend that we're seeing across the state, where lawmakers are now, the state is now choosing to intervene for academic performance to get schools to perform better and on the STAR test than they had in previous years.
Why did Commissioner Morath name Massey to lead Beaumont ISD?
We're seeing a string of officials from Houston, school officials from Houston, tapped to lead. Morath just spoke more broadly to Massey's credentials, but Massey really indicated that some of the changes that she wants to make is around instruction. And so that's definitely some of the, a large part of the changes we've seen in Houston.
Yeah, the other ones, Ina Meyer's been named superintendent of Lake Worth ISD. Daniel Solis will be the deputy superintendent at Fort Worth ISD. What does this pattern suggest to you about how the state is thinking about school turnarounds right now?
Overall, even before this decision, we've seen state lawmakers really tout some of the changes in Houston ISD. Mike Morath has called it the changes at Houston a truly historic success, looking at the academic gains that they've made since the start of the takeover. And so, this really indicates we're seeing the state see Houston ISD as sort of a blueprint or model for what they want to see in other school districts.
Massey has ties to Mike Miles and his Third Future Schools network. This is the same network Beaumont ISD actually partnered with in 2023, trying to avoid a takeover. How do local leaders and parents there feel about now being led by someone from that same circle?
Right. It's too early to say, I think, because they're closely watching the changes that are going to be forthcoming. But when the takeover was announced, we had board leaders really question why the school wasn't closed instead of moving forward with the takeover.
With many, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We'll be watching closely.
With many districts now under state control, several others still at risk of that happening. Do you get a sense that Texas, the state, has a long-term plan here with the model championed by Mike Miles essentially going statewide?
Essentially right now, what we can say is they're increasingly leaning on this tool of a takeover. And so, taking over local control when schools are underperforming, that's really seems like the way that they're seeing the path to make academic gains in schools that are struggling. So we'll just have to keep watching in terms of what that looks like going forward.
Sneha Day is an education reporter with the Texas Tribune. Sneha, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And up next, contemplating the challenges of biracial identity through art. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hello, I'm Jim Kovacic, the executive producer.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
From listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine, Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Houston is often celebrated as one of the most diverse cities in the country, a place where cultures and backgrounds and identities intersect every day. Many biracial Houstonians face unusual challenges, like, for instance, deciding how to fill out a form, as society tends to try to categorize them as one race or another and not both. A new exhibit at Bisong Art Gallery dives into this. It's called Othered, Sketching the Blueprint of Biracial Identity, and it features more than 30 mixed media portraits of biracial people. It's by artist Melissa Aytenfisu, who joins us now. Melissa, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
What is the story that you're trying to tell through these portraits?
So the story I'm telling through this project is really a deep dive into what it means to be biracial in North America.
And how do you go about that?
So for this project, I decided to use photography, and I decided to do portraiture. And it got even more complicated more interesting, because I would say I have a kind of a unique perspective, is that I work in a hospital. So 3 years ago, I started working at Houston Methodist. And when you put an artist in a hospital, different kinds of things are going to happen.
What do you do in the hospital? How does that work?
I work for the Center for Performing Arts Medicine.
Okay.
So I create arts programming for employees throughout the system. And in the hospital, I got to meet a pathology doctor. So we did a photo exhibit, and this pathologist was a really great photographer. So I asked him if I could come to his lab and if I could take pictures of human skin cells. And he was gracious enough to accommodate me and let me come in and take pictures. And I decided to use those pictures as the background for these portraits of biracial individuals.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. Now, were you trying to, this sounds almost silly to say, but match up those skin cells specifically with particular images of people? I mean, was there an attempt to mix and match, or what were you trying to do?
It's a funny story. When I originally went to his office, I wanted to use my skin cells. So I sat down and I said, let's do this. Can I put my hand under the microscope? And he kind of chuckled and said, no, we'd need a section of your skin, which means punching like a hole into your skin and pulling it out and dyeing it and then putting on a plate that we can look at. And I said, oh, no. I don't want to do that.
Hard pass there.
Yeah. But we did pull skin samples of de-identified patients, and I was able to use those. And we looked at the little tiny cells, the melanocytes, that secrete melanin that is then picked up by the keratinocytes, which creates skin tone. And so seeing that under the microscope and then combining that with the portraits, I was able to create these really unique images that I could put in my art show. And then I did a third layer on top of that. I went in Photoshop and kind of artistically, or I made compositions where I cut pieces out of all of the portraits, and then I went in with ink and created hand-drawn DNA patterns. So these 3 layers created the portraits, and what they also did was kind of unify all the models in a way. And in some ways, it's almost like a big family, because as a biracial person, there's really nowhere you can go where everyone looks like you. And I've lived overseas. I lived in China for 2 years. And I think that's when it first hit me, when I went into this large mall in China and everyone, in a small town, but everyone was so uniform. And I'm half Ethiopian. I've been to Ethiopia, and even there, not everybody looks like me. And here in North America, not everybody looks like me. So this exhibition is kind of my fun way of creating a gallery full of people. So if you stand in the middle of the gallery and you look around, everyone looks, well, for me, like me.
Othered, titling it that, it can mean all sorts of things. It can refer to political or social othering, singling out or blaming groups of people for society's ills. We certainly see plenty of evidence of that out in the world today. It can also very directly speak to those forms that I mentioned.
Exactly.
We all fill out lots of forms, and many of them ask us for our race or ethnicity, and they often lead many of us to contemplate, what should I check here? And then sometimes they offer other.
Right. Yes. I actually did a little deep dive into the history of the census while I was doing this project, because as a biracial person, it's always a question mark. What do I check? In fact, I have an artwork called Check Which Box? ? And if you look at it historically, not until the year 2000, the 2000 census, did they have an option for you to check multiracial. Before that, it was other, like Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, or other. So if you wanted to represent both of your sides, you had to choose other, hence the title Othered. So 2000 was the first time you could check multiracial. And then in 2020, it got even better for multiracial people. You could check multiple boxes. So I remember feeling so excited. Wow, I can really represent who I am. I can check Black and white. And I did. Unfortunately, in 2025, what happened after the 2020 census is that with that change in the data, the number of biracial people skyrocketed. It grew by something like 276%. It went from 9 million people identifying as multiracial in 2010 to over 33 million in 2020. So this didn't really align with the Medicare and Social Security and other categories. So the government created something called the MARC files, the Modified Age and Race files, and they recategorized those individuals like myself who had checked multiple boxes back into the 5 main categories. So when I read that, and when other people, biracial people, read that, we kind of feel like, well, we just got erased. And so in a way, this exhibition is kind of a way to say, no, we're still here. We're all still here. And in fact, the trend is that the numbers of biracial people is actually growing, and it's predicted to keep growing. So I think we have our work cut out for us for the 2030 census to hopefully change policy and make it functional to the point that people who are biracial can feel like they're counted, and that they matter, and that they exist, and that their voices are heard, and that their history and their stories are told. And I think that we're headed that way.
When faced with forms like this, are there ever moments where you just think, why do we make this so complicated?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the last time I felt that was in 2024, in July, right after I had my son, who himself, he is biracial. And I remember being in the hospital room, and they brought me a form, and I had to fill it out. And this is 2024, and I couldn't check more than, and it specifically said, check only one box. And when you're left with that as a biracial person, I choose Black. And the majority of the models that I spoke with are the same. We choose Black. And that's also historical. If you look at the history of the census and the fact that in 1930, they had the one drop theory. Anybody who was one drop Black was categorized as Black. And even that is based on, sadly, the fact that, in North America and Canada and the United States, we are built on a system of white supremacy. But it's a system that we're continually dismantling, and we are getting there slowly, step by step by step. And I think the 2000 census and the 2020 are definitely big steps in the right direction. And I think with more biracial people, expressing themselves and becoming policymakers, I think we're going to keep making these changes.
The part I find most intriguing about all of that is as weird as it is to, in the moment, be asked to categorize someone as a single particular race.
Right.
The example you just cited, you had just given birth.
I just had a baby.
And now you're being asked to identify for that child.
Yes.
This is what you will be categorized as.
Right. And I think that speaks to the fact, like, as humans, we want to relate to other people and we want to know how to relate to them. And so when I meet someone of a certain race, we can, based on our upbringing or our values, we know how to interact with them. And so when you're biracial, people give so many quizzical looks because they're just not sure how to categorize you and how to interact with you. So I find, as a biracial person, it takes a few minutes of conversation as someone's looking at you and listening to you and trying to analyze which box to put you in terms of how to interact with you and connect with you. I think it's a human, we like to connect to others, right? It's a good thing, but it's just an area where I think we have to all try to learn values that are more open-minded and accepting of people of whatever race they are, because it's not always obvious, and it can be difficult to assign categories to people.
Is that momentary awkwardness, is it a longer moment or a shorter moment here in Greater Houston? I mean, we're a very diverse community. But we also do tend, we see a certain degree of pockets of self-segregation, and there are varieties of things that people tend to put themselves into categories. And
Absolutely.
I'm just curious what your experience has been in Houston over the years when it comes to those kinds of moments.
I love that question. And for me, it has another layer of nuance because I'm Canadian. So I moved here about 13 years ago now, 12 years. And I thought there'd be so many biracial people because I saw Houston as the most diverse city. I'm like, I bet there'll be so many people who look like me. And there wasn't. And I was working at the MFAH, and every third grade class comes in for a tour of the museum. And I'd see a whole school of black kids come in. And I just hadn't seen that in Canada. And then another whole school of Hispanic kids and a whole school of white kids. And I was pretty shocked by the segregation in this city. And so as a biracial person, I did end up moving and settling and buying a home in Third Ward, which is a predominantly black neighborhood. And I remember my neighbor across the street when we first met looking at me quizzically, that same quizzical look. And part of it is because I'm Canadian. So she was listening to how I spoke and the accent that I had. And what I do that puts people immediately at ease is when I see the quizzical look and we're talking, I just offer, I'm Canadian. And they're like, oh, you're okay. There's black people in Canada? Like, yeah, yes. Then that's kind of a joke, tongue in cheek. But yes, there are. And there's also biracial people in Canada, which most biracial people in Canada, or a lot, are a child of an immigrant, like my dad being from Ethiopia, and then a Canadian, because we don't have as big of a history of slavery and as many African Canadian or Black Canadians there the way it is in the United States, with the longer history of slavery and the deep roots of African American people being here for so long. So there's definitely nuance and difference between being biracial in Canada and in the United States, I've noticed.
What do you hope anyone who's biracial who walks through your exhibit that they'll feel?
I can't wait for biracial people to come and just feel. So as I did the project, I spent some time talking and interviewing my models. And actually, I would like to turn this into a research project down the road. But there's just when you speak to someone else who's biracial, there's this immediate, like, the walls fall down and you can just connect and say things that maybe are hard to say to somebody who hasn't had the same experience. Like the questions of, where are you from? Like, where are you really from? Or what's your hair like, or which parent is black, or which parent is white? All these questions that we get asked. And so I hope that the biracial people can walk in and feel like this calm and this connection and this feeling of like, oh, everyone in here, I'm in a space where people look like me, and I don't have to explain my existence or explain my hair or my skin tone or the way I talk. I don't have to explain any of that. I'm just accepted. So that's what I hope, that they feel accepted and they feel seen and that they smile, because I smile when I look around the room and I'm like, oh, that little girl, I have hair like her. Or is that what my hair is going to look like when I'm older? Or that little boy. There's so many similarities, and yet it feels in a way like a big family album, and yet it's not. So
Melissa Aytenfisu is the artist behind the Bisong Art Gallery exhibit Othered, Sketching the Blueprint of Biracial Identity. It's on display through May 28th. Melissa, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And just ahead, from sinking ground in Katy and Houston's northern suburbs to seaweed on the rise along Galveston's shoreline, to why ChatGPT is being instructed not to mention goblins, we contemplate intrigues in the news with this week's non-expert panel on the good, the bad, and the ugly as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
On last week's Wait.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Bob Costas and his interviews with music stars during his 1980s and 90s NBC late night series called Later. This time, Kenny Loggins, Del Shannon, and Cyndi Lauper.
Do I have like a great voice? Everyone always told me I stunk, or everyone always said you were terrific.
Hear more from the Bob Costas Music Interview Archive right here, real soon. Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
A lot can happen in a week, some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Mary Flood, legal consultant with Androvett Legal Media and Marketing. Celeste Díaz Schurman, co-host for one more day of Houston Public Media's Hello Houston program today from 11 to 1. And Jack Young, artistic director of the Houston Shakespeare Festival and head of the University of Houston's Professional Actor Training Program. Mary, Celeste, Jack, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us, Craig.
Absolutely. Panel, if you've had a sinking feeling lately, it may not be you. It could just be what part of town you're in. As Houston Public Media's Natalie Weber reported this week, portions of Katy, northern Harris County, and Montgomery County are sinking faster than other locations across greater Houston. The Harris-Galveston Subsidence District made that finding in a recent report. Its Director of Research, Ashley Gruder, presented that report at a public hearing Thursday. She cites rapid population growth driving higher rates of groundwater usage and notes one location in Katy has sunk about 14 inches since 2007. Houston's northern suburbs, along with Katy, are sinking, and at a faster rate than the rest of greater Houston. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Mary Flood, start us off.
It's ugly, Craig. You know, we really love being number one in things, but being number one in sinking faster than any other U.S. city is really not a good one, I don't think. You know, it's kind of scary. I didn't even know we had a subsidence district, but the fact that we have one isn't really great news. And one of the things they said, well, you can avoid this if you use less water, use less oil and gas. Well, my car and my pool and my garden and my lawn are all saying, I'm not sure about that. I know we already have problems with, drought causing foundation problems and floods causing foundations problems. And I learned a couple of years ago that there are 300 faults underneath the Houston area. I learned this because some homeowners up in Montgomery County, which has some of these problems, sued their home builders, saying that they were having cracks because of a fault line, not just because of the huge drought that had caused cracks all over town. We also have sinkholes. So an 84-year-old woman in an SUV almost fell completely into a sinkhole near my CVS in the fall. We already have so much to worry about. We have war and gun violence and plague and when the Pit season 3 will start. I think that the bottom line here is probably that we're going to see Nolan Ryan doing a lot more ads for foundation repair.
When I first heard somebody say, We all have our own little faults. I didn't realize they quite literally meant that
Yes,
all
underfoot.
over Greater Houston.
Right.
Good, bad, or ugly, Celeste?
I'm going to go with bad. I think, ground sinking is not a good thing. From what I understand, it's generally because of subsidence. And so I think that we don't want our floor falling out from underneath from us. But I'm not really sure what we can do about it. And so San Francisco's been sinking for a really long time, and it still seems to be there. So I'm going to go with just bad.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Jack.
I'll make some moment of mirth at our friends' dismay. I suppose if they're sinking out there on the western counties, that means everybody in the loop is in the Heights. Not just the Heights is in the Heights, like the whole area is the Heights. But, and I will confess, moving down here to Houston, I moved into Westbury, and I was very happy to find a house that was 5 feet above the street, practically a hill. And everybody in the neighborhood said, "Oh, your house is never flooded." And I said, "Oh, that's nice," in my naive way of not knowing what that meant. But then the drought hit, and I was informed I needed to water my foundation. I'm sorry, I need to water my foundation. Yes, you need to water your foundation. Get the garden hose out there and walk around the perimeter of your house and pour water into the dirt, or your house is going to, and they weren't wrong, because I could see the windows starting to skew and the doors starting to not hang straight and the bricks starting to. So I ended up hiring a contractor. This guy has these folks out digging a trench around the perimeter of my house, and these folks are underneath the place with these concrete cylinders, and he's inside on a walkie-talkie with a laser level going right up 3, down left 2, and I'm watching the house get chiropractic back into, and the windows went back to straight and the doors hung straight. And okay, solid ground is not solid when you remove the water, and so watering a foundation in the middle of a drought was a nice surprise for me. But welcome to the Gulf Coast.
Welcome.
Panel, it's also seaweed season in Galveston. Yes, as beachgoers can confirm, over the past several weeks, increases in sargassum have been noticeable along the Texas coast, including the beach along Galveston Island. But is it more than usual? Galveston-based extreme weather scientist Dr. Hal Needham says no, it's just part of a natural cycle this time of year. But some locals disagree. Sherry Schmidt, while walking along the Galveston shore with her husband, told Houston Public Media's Juliana Washburn, quote, "We've never seen anything like this." Another sign, NOAA announced Wednesday its usual weekly sargassum reports will be issued daily for the time being, noting the seaweed on the shoreline has become a, quote, major nuisance and an economic drain affecting tourism. Officials with the Galveston Park Board say seaweed buildup has yet to meet depth and height thresholds before officials can actually remove and relocate it. The sargassum's back in Galveston. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Celeste?
Well, not to be sarcastic, but I definitely... I had to. Come on. We all wanted somebody to do it.
I thought his pun was bad. That's
bad.
Well done.
It's ugly. Right. Besides my pun, this is just, I think, ugly. I wish we could find some ways to actually use the sargassum and.
Well, in fact, that is one of the things they do is when they relocate it to spaces that shore up, portions of shoreline or reefs or something like that. There is some potential benefit to the relocation, but there has to be enough of it to make it worth the expense to
right. And we're
it all
kind
away.
of in between that space, that time, right? So unfortunately, it's just going to be ugly and it's going to be there. I do think that this is where I feel very relieved to have experts in this field that can find ways to make this turn something that's kind of ugly into a positive and use it better for our environment. I mean, I definitely feel for people that live in Galveston or anybody that's visiting. I know from personal experience, I was in Cancun and there was seaweed everywhere. And you're like, well, I just paid for a very expensive vacation to sit here around seaweed. So it's just ugly. And I hope that we can continue to find ways that we can make it a benefit.
So you want to turn sargassum into sargassum aid. Good, bad, or ugly, Jack?
What? I don't know. This is sort of along the lines of the concern, I guess, last week before about the love bugs. Good, bad, or ugly. It is what it is. It's the Gulf Coast, so the love bugs are going to show up. The seaweed's going to show up, and so it's been here longer than we have, and it will be here long after we leave. And so it's kind of like if you're late to the party, you don't get to complain about the spread. So you were late. You don't get a corner piece of the cake. So you're late. Somebody's picked all the cashews out of the nuts, and so no, there's probably some things floating around in the dip that weren't there when they first put it out there. So if you're late to the spread, and so if we're going to have nice Januaries where you can walk around in t-shirts and shorts and go swimming in the Gulf, a warm January means seaweed in May. April showers bring May flowers. I guess January good weather brings you seaweed in May. We wrap it around the sushi. You don't complain. So I don't know if that's where it ends up, but
I just learned that Jack Young steals all of the cashews from the mixed nuts.
Not me, man. Not me.
Good, bad, or ugly, Mary?
I think it's all three. I think it's good because, there's this like nature and cyclical and part of rebuilding the dunes. And it's bad because it's a nuisance and it's in the way and it smells. And it's ugly because it puts off like Houston sulfide or something, Houston hydrogen sulfide or something like that. And the EPA says it can hurt your heart and your nerve system and your respiratory system. That's bad. But it being brown, Galveston's already got a lot of brown, and the water's so churned up when the water's actually blue, it makes the news. So brown, and the smell. I mean, it already smells kind of fishy down there. Nobody's having Johnny Depp doing a mysterious ad-looking Deppy and for cologne named Galveston. But there's so much fun stuff to do in Galveston other than stare at the water, which is what I like, or at night watching those oil tankers go by. So romantic. But you can go buy stuff you don't need on the Strand, and you can go to rides on the pier and to Moody Gardens, and you can do my favorite thing, which is the ferry to Bolivar, not with a car, but with just walking on the ferry to Bolivar, because there are all those dolphins going next to you, and the pterodactyls, some people call them something else. What is that?
Pelicans?
But
pelicans.
The pterodactyls that are flying over us.
Pterodactyls.
Pelicans. And you can't see the seaweed from there. So take the ferry.
We do not have pterodactyls in Galveston.
They're pterodactyls.
Not yet.
They're pterodactyls.
Not yet.
Take a look. They're pterodactyls. They're relatives.
Panel, ChatGPT maker OpenAI posted its latest Codex CLI last week. This is basically the open source code of instructions for the popular generative AI system. Contained among some of the less interesting code were instructions to some of the AI tools to stop talking about goblins. The company, in a blog post Thursday, noted it had spotted increased mentions of the mythological creatures in ChatGPT responses, but not just goblins. The instructions indicated the generative AI should, quote, never talk about goblins, gremlins, raccoons, trolls, ogres, pigeons, or other animals or creatures unless it is absolutely and unambiguously relevant to the user's query, unquote. Naturally, I wondered if this was limited to ChatGPT, so I asked Google's Gemini, have you ever been instructed not to talk about goblins, gremlins, raccoons, trolls, ogres, or pigeons? The reply, not at all. I'm free to chat about any of those. Gemini went on to note it hasn't received any anti-goblin or gremlin silencing manifestos. ChatGPT starts mentioning certain creatures, some real, some mythological, a little too much, prompting instruction to lay off the goblin metaphors. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Jack?
I think it's good. I think we're finding out just the relative maturity of each of these models as they go forward. And it seems to me that maybe ChatGPT, if we're going to track it in terms of its growing maturity, it's sort of in the K through 3 level, because these topics all seem like the library offerings in an elementary school, because it's the Nobby Boys to the rescue, or the raccoons, or the gremlins, and maybe the other one just hasn't got there to that set of books.
If we get instructions, if we learn about instructions instructions to ChatGPT to lay off the booger references, then
Right.
I'll know
Yeah,
you're
yeah. So,
right in
you
the
know,
K through 3
yeah,
territory.
Captain Underpants,
Yeah.
then we'll really know where they are. But
Goosebumps.
eventually it'll mature and it'll become maybe Hunger Games and Mean Girls, and then eventually maybe get into
wow.
Bridget Jones' Diary and the Roman Empire, and finally it'll get to like the History Channel and do World War II and the British Baking Channel. So we'll know have finally reached AARP when those references are going that way. I don't know how long it'll take that to evolve, but we can track it that way.
Wow. Good, bad, or ugly, Mary?
Well, I also think it's good because it's hilarious. I don't really understand the list. It's sort of like a real easy SAT list. What doesn't go in this list? Because raccoons and pigeons aren't imaginary as far as I know, and everybody else is.
But don't let the pigeon drive
the
the
rest
bus.
on the list are. But AI is already just so hilarious itself. One of my clients had a big win recently, but like 6 media covered it. We put out a press release. Everybody got it right except AI, and they switched who won and who lost all over AI. And I'm just like, yeah, this is just remarkable and sometimes hilarious, like when they tell you to eat rocks or glue pizza and stuff like that. But the goblins and raccoons, I sort of understand how they got in there because they're both sly and they hang out at night. But the pigeons really seem odd to me because I just put up a new bird feeder, and it's basically a very thin box. And the pigeons' close relatives, doves, they're having a lot of trouble with it. I've got cardinals and
pterodactyls apparently,
and warblers. But the doves are coming and they're using it as a swing and they're trying to eat and they can't figure it out. And I'm just thinking, the pigeons really don't have a lot in common with these other guys. But the one that trolls, what makes me think of trolls more than the internet is these little dolls I used to get when I was younger, like in the 70s. And they had like Marge Simpson hair. And I just hope we never get to a point where AI says that you shouldn't talk about Marge Simpson hair.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Celeste?
I would agree with our other two panelists. I think this is good because I feel like we still have some control over AI. Pretty practical reason right there. I think AI is really scary. And then whenever I heard the words goblins and gremlins and raccoons, I was like, oh, it's really, really scary. No, but I do think it's good. And I'm all for a good old conspiracy theory as to why goblins and gremlins keep coming up. So I'm interested. I might have to ask about that.
Yeah, as I understand it, apparently they've been trying to train ChatGPT to be a bit more nerdy. That's the argument. I don't know. None of it makes
Guardians
sense
of the
to me
Galaxy
anymore.
raccoons.
There you go. Who knows? Mary Flood's a legal consultant with Androvett Legal Media and Marketing. Celeste Díaz Schurman co-hosts today's Hello Houston from 11 to 1 on News 88.7. Jack Young is artistic director of the Houston Shakespeare Festival. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good weekend.
Right.
My name's Richard Welch. I'm a pyrotechnician, Houston Astros. My job here is when they hit home runs, I send off concussions, or at the end of the game when they win. A concussion is a loud boom, plain and simple. I make things blow up. We've got a PD, which is a pyro digital unit. It's made by people out at NASA. This is a trigger. And to pull the trigger, you've got a dead man button on it. You have to have that dead man pushed down, and then you pull the trigger. The dead man's on it, so if I set it down, it can't actually go off or accidentally go off. So it's a safety feature on it. When they hit a home run, I turn the key on, I pull the trigger, and then I turn the key back off. I've been doing pyro work for about 25 years now. Oh, my hearing's bad. My hearing's real bad. When I talk to people, I've got to tell them, you got to talk louder. Oh, I love it. I love home runs. I like to hear the boom. I like to hear the crowd. And I like to scare Bobby, the train driver. Well, when I first started baseball, I didn't like baseball. Didn't care for baseball whatsoever. But now it's in my blood. I love baseball. I think it's a very magical game. I give balls away and just see the eyes of the kids that get the ball. It makes it all worth it. My name is Richard Welch. I'm a pyrotechnician for the Houston Astros, and you're listening to Houston Matters.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
In a classroom today. Through research and collaboration, Good Reason Houston brings the region together to help more students graduate ready to earn a living wage. Learn more at goodreasonhouston.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, Great Performances presents a new season of Now Hear This. Violinist and conductor Scott Yu returns to host the critically acclaimed miniseries. Tonight at 8:30 on TV8.
The Houston-based ensemble Trio Menil is in concert Sunday at Asia Society, Texas, in a performance that blends classical tradition with Studio Ghibli and K-pop and spotlights Asian American and Pacific Islander composers. Here to tell us more about it are two members of the ensemble, cellist David Dietz and pianist Jonathan Mak. Welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Craig. Thanks for having us.
How did Trio Menil get started?
So we started in 2022. Jonathan was a student at Rice University, and I was freshly graduated from my master's there. And we were both in the DeCamera Young Artists program. And so we ended up playing a lot together in that program in venues around Houston, both concerts and a lot of outreach and educational stuff. And we just became good friends and started playing a lot together and made it kind of a regular thing.
Jonathan, there are lots of classical piano trios out there. What do you think sets yours apart?
Well, we like to play a lot of different repertoire, a lot of the standards. We took it to various different competitions, and as well as connecting with the local Houston community, we like to commission some of our colleague composers at Rice. So last year we did a project with composer Nikki Sohn and incorporating the Houston scenes of the rodeo. So she wrote us a trio that reflects the events that go on in the rodeo. And this year we are fortunate enough to work with Sam Wu. He commissioned another trio, which we're about to premiere this weekend.
Yeah, you're so doing this concert. It's called Past, Present, Premiere, an AAPI celebration. So it sounds like there's some older music, some current music, and then something brand new. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're featuring music by AAPI composers and related to AAPI artists. The oldest piece that we're playing is by a composer named Rina Esmail. It's not too old. It was written in 2019, and she's an Indian American composer and incorporates a lot of kind of Hindustani classical music and blends it with Western classical music. Of course, we have the premiere, the brand new piece by Sam Wu, which we're really excited to unveil. And then a lot of the present music is some of this music that's really in pop culture right now, Studio Ghibli, K-pop Demon Hunters, a lot of really fun, family-friendly music.
You're here with instruments in tow, of course, ready to play something for us. What would you like to perform today?
Yeah, so we're going to share a short excerpt. This is a duo written by Sam Wu. It's not going to be the piece that we're playing this weekend, but just another glimpse of the musical language to expect. This is called Travelogues, and it's the first movement. It's reflecting his childhood in transit through these misty, verdant mountains in southeast China. And so this movement is titled Past.
Okay, so the first movement of Travelogues by Sam Wu, performed by David Dietz and Jonathan Mak from Trio Menil. Again, their concert Sunday at Asia Society, Texas, is called Past, Present, Premiere, an AAPI celebration. Take it away. The first movement of Travelogues by Sam Wu, performed there by cellist David Dietz and pianist Jonathan Mak from Trio Menil, live in studio here on Houston Matters. Their concert is Sunday at 2 p.m. at Asia Society, Texas. It's called Past Present Premiere, an AAPI celebration. David, Jonathan, thank you very much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On Monday's show, the Houston Chronicle's Lisa Gray and Hello Houston's Ernie Manous will join us for another round of Houstonian pet peeves. You can share yours with us now or through the weekend at talk@houstonmatters.org, or just get ready to let loose on the air Monday morning. Also, the Houston Rockets have a chance to make NBA history over the next 72 hours. Should they win tonight and again on Sunday, they would become the first team ever in the league to win a playoff series after losing the first 3 games. Whatever happens tonight and possibly Sunday, we will discuss it. I'm Craig Cohen. Have a great weekend and join us Monday for those and other Houston Matters.
Next time on The Pulse, psychedelics have been gaining ground